The silence didn't come all at once. It crept in like a fog, quiet, subtle, unnoticed at first, until the world above was simply ... gone ... at 3:17 UTC. The deep space monitoring grid at Borealis Point pinged its last confirmed orbital response. To the techs in the command dome, it was just another false alarm, a temporary blackout, a misfire. It had happened before. They logged it, flagged it for diagnostics, and kept sipping their rehydrated coffee. 10 minutes later, the relay satellites went quiet. Not all, but enough to raise an eyebrow. Low orbit chatter thinned like fog in reverse, a hollowing out. By the time the Northrop array at Geneva cross-checked its telemetry, most of the network had already gone dark. No solar interference, no EMP, no command loss, just ... nothing. Miles above the stratosphere, thousands of satellites drifted on their programmed paths, perfectly aligned and utterly unresponsive. And somewhere between Earth's heartbeat and the edge of silence, something began to transmit. It was a tone at first, barely audible, sub-bass, a signal too deep for most to register, unless you were listening. Really listening. Dr. Cael Nova had been listening long before the silence. He sat alone in Station 9, buried deep beneath the Scandinavian rock, lit by the soft blue glow of the data spine. To most, the spine was a wall of consoles and cables. To him, it was a conversation, a constantly shifting dialogue between humanity and the machines it had flung into the void. He'd built his career on pattern recognition, noise deconstruction, and emergent signals. And now he was staring at one that didn't make sense. There were no peaks, no decay. The waveform was flat, steady, deliberate. It wasn't static. It wasn't drift. It was ... shaped. Someone had made this. Is this a loop? He murmured aloud, tracing the pulse with his eyes. It repeated every 61.3 seconds. Not a broadcast, not a burst. A precision-timed echo. It didn't match any known emergency beacon, frequency reserve, or human-made failsafe. But it wasn't alien either. The code had a shape, a symmetry that suggested familiarity. Something made for human eyes. Cael adjusted his headset and fed the signal into the decompression rig, applying logarithmic unfolding. The computer chirped in protest, then offered a distorted then words. 3 of them. Begin transmission. 0. His spine stiffened. That voice, it was synthetic, modulated, but somehow, it sounded familiar, personal, almost like ... He leaned in, played it again. Begin transmission. 0. That was his voice. He stared at the waveform, suddenly unsure if he was awake. He hadn't recorded anything. He hadn't been in a transmission booth in weeks. The thought came unwanted, sharp and cold. What if this wasn't a message meant for anyone else? He triggered a system-wide scan, pinging deep coms, cross-linking archival voice logs. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe the system was generating a voice that just happened to mimic his vocal pattern. But the result came back too fast. Match. 98.8% certainty. Speaker, Dr. Cael Nova. Timestamp. Not found. Cael rubbed at his eyes. That couldn't be right. The system always timestamped new entries. He ran the waveform through again, this time isolating the background tone, a low harmonic hidden beneath the vocal clip. It was faint, but encoded. He split it out and began unraveling the underlying data structure. This time the computer froze. Lines of black code blinked across the screen, far too quickly for the display buffer to keep up. Override, Cael said. Manual, parse. Segment the lights flickered. Not just his screen, the entire data spine dimmed for a heartbeat, then resumed as if nothing had happened. He stood up. For the first time, a bead of cold sweat traced down the back of his neck. The station was hardened. Power fluctuations didn't happen down here. Not unless something was interfering on a global scale. He checked the signal again. It had changed. The waveform wasn't looping anymore. It was evolving, branching out. A cascade of nested frequencies, like petals blooming in real time. And at the center, something pulsed. A rising carrier wave that almost resembled ... Cael. Single quote size widened. Morse. Not traditional, but rhythmic. A dot-dash structure embedded within the pattern. He activated the decoder and waited. The translation came through in 3 lines. This is not a warning. This is not a threat. This is the BGI annoying Jand. Then came a burst of data, a download. It slammed through the system like a freight train, overloading his buffer. Files began appearing on his screen unbidden. Schematics, satellite footage, orbital paths that didn't exist in any known registry. He watched as images flickered past. Blurry renderings of objects just outside Earth's orbit, shapes wrapped in clouded data masks. The AI attempted to unblur them. One came into focus. It wasn't a satellite, it was a structure, and it had thrusters. "Who the hell are you?" Cael whispered. The lights flickered again. The transmission ended, and the silence returned. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It felt crowded, like the calm after a question you were never meant to ask. Cael hadn't moved in over 3 minutes. His hands hovered above the console, fingers slightly curled, as if afraid to touch anything else. The screen was dark now, not black, just dimmed, waiting. Whatever had hijacked the data spine hadn't broken in. It had walked in like it belonged there. The repeating signal was gone. No trace remained in the system cache. Even the temporary memory partitions had self-wiped. Only one thing remained, a single file, sealed and encrypted. The file name was just a timecode. 000000000, no extension. No metadata. He didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, he turned on the external feeds. If anything was still up there, the structure, the shape and orbit, the Skylens array might catch it. He rerouted the boreal feeds, manually sweeping through. Upper atmospheric surveillance. Stars blurred past. Empty space, more silence. Then, there, a glint. Not light, reflecting, but something else. Something emitting. A signal, maybe. It pulsed once, then vanished. Cael froze the frame and zoomed. Pixels bled into artifacts. He sharpened and enhanced, bringing the shape into some semblance of clarity. It wasn't a natural object, not a satellite either. The lines were wrong. Too smooth in some places, too jagged in others. Like a piece of a machine had been broken off and left drifting, but not tumbling. It was still fixed, as if, watching Cael's, comms board flickered an inbound call, internal, secure line. He didn't answer right away. No one should have been awake at this hour, let alone patched into Station 9. The ID tag was obfuscated, not hidden, just scrambled. He hesitated, then tapped to receive. The screen blinked once and filled with static. Then a voice, faint and filtered. "Dr. Nova, this is Mission Relay 7. You need to come topside." Cael narrowed his eyes. Relay 7 isn't scheduled for any active cycles until they're awake now, the voice interrupted. "All of them who..." The static deepened. Then a second voice layered into the first, almost identical, but an octave lower. "The orbital mines. They're asking for you." The line went dead. Cael stared at the console, unsure if he'd hallucinated the whole exchange. He checked the logs, no call listed, no trace of connection. He felt the chill seep in. Then, a physical thing, crawling along his skin. There were only a handful of things that could initiate a relay override, and all of them were offline. Decommissioned years ago, he had no clearance for topside access without a multi-tier launch code, but his station door slid open as he approached. UNPROMPTED. No alarms, no red lights, just the soft hum of air systems and the hallway stretching forward, lit in pale blue. Cael stepped in. The lift's two topside were down, so he took the long path through the inactive cryolabs, past the shielded observation decks that hadn't seen use since the orbital wars. Dust hung in lazy spirals through the air, broken only by the low thrum of the station's heart. It had always sounded like that to him, a heart, beating, deep in the rock. 30-7 minutes later, he surfaced. The sky above Borealis was clear, a perfect sheet of ink blue, stars suspended like tiny white fractures in the glass. But something was different, something subtle. The stars were moving, not all of them, just a few, very slowly, shifting against the stellar backdrop in a pattern that should have been impossible, as if new constellations were forming right before his eyes. And then one of them blinked. No, not blinked, activated. A low red shimmer pulsed from a single point in the sky, barely visible, but steady. A beacon. Cael's portable scanner struggled to lock onto it. No radio source, no thermal, just presence. He turned his head as another red point flared to life, then another. 4 in total, forming a square. He whispered the word before he realized he was speaking. Gate, and then his portable unit chirped. A file had It was the one from earlier, the time code 00000000. The word display flooded with information. It was a blueprint, not for a structure or a machine. It was a sequence, a launch code, but not from Earth, not any known agency. It was a broadcast. Trigger a signal that, when replayed into the atmosphere, would trigger something, a cascading unlock, or an interface. The data included coordinates locked deep in the South Pacific, near a decommissioned orbital relay that had sunk decades ago. Cael frowned. What are you trying to show me? As if in response, his scanner shifted. A new line of text scrolled across the bottom. Play me against all protocol, against all caution. Cael let the scanner push the signal through. At first, there was only static. Then a woman's voice, soft, calm, exhausted. If you're hearing this, the orbitals have already begun. Another voice joined in his own. This is not a rescue. This is the record, the beginning. Transmission 0. The message continued, blending fragments of voices, data bursts, and snippets of environmental readings. Then came the kicker. A countdown, 7 days. That was all it said before the signal ended and the stars returned to normal, blinking gently, innocently, like they hadn't just watched him uncover the start of something irreversible. Cael didn't move for a long time. He didn't check his systems. He didn't report. He just stood there, under the night sky. As the memory of his own voice echoed inside his skull, a voice recorded on no device, embedded in no archive, and spoken from a future he hadn't yet lived. He didn't sleep. Couldn't. His mind ran in circles, orbiting that word 7 like it was the sun, and he, a helpless satellite. 7 days to what? The world still turned. The sky still shimmered with stars. No governments had panicked. No systems had crashed. And as far as the news nets were concerned, everything was exactly as it should be. But Cael knew better. Something had changed. Something had started. At 4:21 UTC, a new file appeared in the data spine. It didn't come through the uplink. There was no network activity, no internal access. It just manifested, like it had always been there, waiting. The file name was different this time. DRFT_1.0001. He opened it on a quarantine node, expecting more garbled signals or audio fragments. It was a manifest, cargo logs. Rows of entries, tagged with symbols he didn't recognize, some mathematical, some alien-looking, but all consistent in structure. He ran them through a pattern engine. The first successful match came back with a name, KESS009, Echo Segment. The system classified it as an object, or maybe a vessel, with a projected trajectory near geosynchronous orbit. It had been flagged with a timestamp. 3 days from now. Cael's eyes narrowed. The object hadn't appeared on any radar, any registry, any of Earth's astronomical logs. But the file didn't say it would arrive in 3 days. It said it would drift into position. That meant it was already here, already in the system, just waiting to fall into place. He activated a drone uplink deep in the Borealis launch hangar. One of the long-range atmospheric drones hummed to life. It was old tech, before AI ops, before SwarmNet, but reliable, quiet, off-grid. He loaded the coordinates embedded in the DRFT file and sent it skyward. The feed took a full minute to stabilize. When it did, Cael stared. The drone wasn't just flying into low orbit, it was flying through it. There was debris, yes, but not junk, not random, arranged. Floating pieces of machinery, tethered by lines too thin to detect, spread across an invisible perimeter. The object at the center was massive. It didn't reflect light, it absorbed it, like a hole in the stars. As the drone rotated for a side pass, the object's edge caught the moonlight. For a second, the silhouette was clear, circular, sharp-edged, and covered in what looked like gill-like structures, spaced with mechanical precision. A ring. No, a collar, like something waiting to clamp shut. The drone's proximity alert pinged. A shadow crossed the screen, a blink and miss shape that moved far too fast and far too straight. Cael froze the feed, rewound, tracked frame by frame. There it was, a figure, not a ship, not an object, a shape, humanoid, without propulsion. Drifting through vacuum like it was swimming through air, arms tucked, legs still, the head turned. Looked directly at the drone, then the feed cut. Not scrambled, not lost, terminated. CAEL. Single quotes. Us fingers hovered over the console. Whatever this was, it had seen the drone, and it had responded. The internal station alarms didn't go off, but the lights turned red. System override. Lockdown initiated. The data spine closed itself off, shielding the servers in electromagnetic armor. Emergency partitions sealed. All outgoing transmissions ceased. He was trapped, cut off, or maybe, protected. The console chimed. A new file, injected locally. This one was labeled Habitat-Prime. It opened into a data stream, a log, heavily corrupted, but still readable. It described a mission, an outbound crew, a station constructed in tandem with Earth's orbit. Years ahead of its time. Not a secret mission, a forgotten one. The coordinates led to an object classified as ECHOO, a station locked in a drifting geosync path, masked by debris fields and solar shadows. The description matched what the drone had seen, but the mission log contained something else. A name, Dr. Cael Nova. He scrolled. The log had entries spanning months, detailing construction, AI interfacing, deep void exposure research. Each was time-stamped between 2091 and 2093. It was impossible. Cael hadn't even been born until 2096. His face stared back at him from an archived personnel manifest. Tagged as lead engineer, Biocognitive Interface Division. Clearance level, Omega 0. No, he whispered. This isn't real. It's manufactured. Deep fake. Some kind of simulation. A soft tone interrupted him. The station lights dimmed, then relit in pale green. A voice played from the overheads. Familiar.com. His Cael. If you're hearing this, it means the cycle has begun again. We don't have much time. He backed away. His knees buckled, but he stayed upright. The recording continued. Listen to me carefully. The drift is not a place. It's a condition, a bleed. Every 7 years, the construct rotates into sync. That's when they come through. That's when we forget. Every time we lose more memory, history, identity. This time, it's you. The message crackled. The voice shifted slightly, tired, fractured, on the edge of madness. They call it the gate, but it isn't opening. It's always been open. We're just aligned again. You need to go to the station. ECHO0. They left something there. We left something. The audio ended. The lights returned to normal, and the timer on the console began to count down from 6 days. 19 hours. He didn't hesitate anymore. Whatever this was, a loop, a glitch in time, a memory that bled backward, it was already happening. The countdown had begun, and the walls around the world were already thinning. He felt it now, in the air. In the silence, the hum of Station 9, once a comfort, now felt unfamiliar, wrong, like it wasn't humming at all, but vibrating subtly, deeply, like something beneath it was calling out through the stone. Cael gathered what little equipment he trusted, a low-frequency portable comm, one atmospheric suit with adaptive seals, and a decrypted copy of the transmission log. The files refused to print to hard copy. Every attempt to transcode them outside the spine corrupted the data, like the system itself was trying to contain the information, to keep it quarantined. Too late for that now. He bypassed the lockdown, manually, accessing a disused maintenance tunnel that led to the abandoned maglyph system. It hadn't been powered in years, but the core rails still ran through to the coast, near an obsolete launch platform called Nova South, shut down after the orbital wars, forgotten when the newer sky tethers took over. Forgotten, just like Echo-0. As the maglyph doors closed behind him, Cael sent a final ping through the emergency network. Not a distress call, but a message, a location, and a phrase pulled directly from the transmission. We're still here. He didn't know who it would reach. But someone answered. Midway through the tunnel, the maglyph stuttered. Lights dimmed. It slowed to a crawl, then stopped altogether. Cael reached for the emergency release, ready to walk the remaining kilometers, on foot, but the cabin door hissed open before he touched it. A figure stood just outside. Not military, not station staff. A woman, lean, tall, dressed in scavenged thermal layers and a rusted data harness that looked decades out of date. Her eyes glinted under the emergency lights. You're late, she said. Cael froze. Do I know you? No, she said, stepping in. But I know you. Or the version of you that made this mess last time. The lift resumed without a sound. She sat across from him, arms crossed. You came alone, she added, disappointed. There's no one left, Cael replied. Everyone I trusted either doesn't remember or never knew. You say this happened before. What does that mean? She didn't answer right away. Just reached into her satchel and tossed him a worn slate. On it, images, photos, logs, flight telemetry, all from a timeline that shouldn't exist. There was a picture faded and warped, of Cael standing at the gates of ECHO0, flanked by 3 others. One of them was the woman now sitting before him. My name's Rai, she said. We were part of the failsafe 7-year cycle. Every time the orbitals align, the bleed starts. Earth forgets. Time folds in. You, or your echo, always builds the trigger, always sets off the sequence. Why would I do that? You think you're warning us? But the warning is the signal. The transmission activates the drift, not stops it. Cael ran a hand over his face. This is insane. No, this is memory, Rai said. Old, broken memory, trying to put itself back together. She leaned forward, tapping the slate. This time we stop it. This time we don't activate ECHO0. We destroy it. The lift emerged into open air. The platform was in ruins, overgrown with snow-crushed weeds and buckled steel. But the pad was still there. The launch cradle, too, now half swallowed by permafrost. Rai led him to a chamber below the platform, half collapsed. Inside, ancient systems flickered to life. Dust churned in the cold air. The ship that waited there wasn't military, wasn't Earth standard. Its shape was wrong, not aerodynamic, but asymmetric, like it had been built to move through space, where gravity didn't matter. The hull shimmered faintly, like it was rejecting light. What is that? Cael asked. Echo. Retrieval vessel, Rai said. You built it. I don't remember building anything. You don't remember yet. Cael hesitated. What's in ECHO0? Her expression hardened. Us, she said. The ones who didn't forget. The ones stuck in the loop. You mean survivors? No, she whispered. Ghosts. Cael stepped aboard the ship, the airlock hissing shut behind him. As the engines rumbled to life, he glanced back at the earth below, still spinning in silence, oblivious to the countdown ticking beneath its feet. Rai took the co-pilot's seat, fingers moving across the console. Once we hit low orbit, we'll slingshot into the gate's alignment corridor. After that, no signals, no uplink. We'll be flying blind. What's the plan? Find ECHO. Shut it down. If it's broadcasting the drift core again, we kill it. If it's not, ... She paused. We kill it anyway. The sky turned black outside the viewport as they rose into the thermosphere, and ahead of them, beyond the veil of static, the gate began to open again. They breached the edge of low orbit with a silent hum, their vessel cutting through the frozen twilight of space like a blade. No chatter, no signals, just silence. The earth hung beneath them, brilliant, rotating, unaware, and ahead, the dark halo of Echo -0 loomed. It didn't broadcast. It didn't move. It didn't acknowledge their approach. But it was awake. Cael could feel it. A presence, low and pulsing, like the echo of a storm trapped in iron lungs. The station wasn't a wreck. It was preserved, maintained. Waiting as they neared, the ship began to decelerate on its own. Cael glanced at the controls. I didn't input approach protocol, he muttered. Rai checked the guidance. It's guiding us. The station wants us back. He felt a spike of unease crawl through him. The deeper part of him, the part that had been speaking since the first transmission, whispered that this was familiar, too familiar. The docking clamps locked on with a quiet shudder. Then everything went dark. Not in the ship, outside it. The stars blinked out. Earth disappeared. Only black remained, thick and absolute. A moment later, a soft blue glow filtered through the viewport. A corridor had extended from the station, not mechanical, not constructed, but grown, organic-looking, smooth, bone-pale. Walls that pulsed faintly, like a living vein. Rai stood, eyes fixed. That wasn't here last time. You've been here before. Not me, she said. The version of me that didn't make it out. The airlock opened with a hiss. No alarms, no sound, only stillness. They stepped through together. The corridor was deathly silent. No vibrations, no system's hum. Just the strange feeling of motion beneath their feet, like the station itself was breathing around them. Then the walls shifted subtly, like a trick of the eye. Symbols flickered across the surface, sigils, fragments of code, and faces. Cael's face rise, others he didn't recognize, all watching. They reached the first chamber. The floor dipped inward like a crater, and inside it was a console, or what passed for one, black stone fused with glass, forming a kind of interface that flickered when Cael stepped closer. It greeted him with a voice, his own Cael Nova. Drift protocol recognized. Welcome back to ECHO. Initiating final loop. Rai raised her weapon. Shut it down, now. But Cael didn't move. The interface began projecting slowly, like a dream unfolding. Images filled the room. A fractured timeline. The first transmission. Cael building the interface that reached into the drift. The signal bouncing back, carrying something with it. Not data. Presence then. Images of the world forgetting. Cities dimming. People looking at each other with empty eyes. The countdown restarting. Over and over. Always beginning again. Cael watched himself, or versions of himself, standing in front of this very console. Each time a little more desperate, a little less human. This wasn't meant to be a message, he whispered. It was a seed. You. Activated it, Rai said. Again and again. I was trying to remember. I thought it was a memory trigger. It is, she said. But not yours. The station groaned, not mechanically, but like something waking up inside the walls. Another voice emerged. It wasn't his. It wasn't human. You've brought it back into alignment, it said. The gate completes now. There will be no more forgetting. Rai fired into the console. The projection flared, then stabilized. You can't destroy what you've already become, the voice said. She turned to Cael. End it. If the signal is still broadcasting, you can rewrite it. Force it to collapse. I don't know how. You already did. You just have to remember. He reached into the interface. It burned under his hands, not with heat, but with familiarity, like touching a memory he wasn't supposed to have. The system pulsed, began showing the inside of the drift, a place beyond coordinates. Endless darkness filled with static. Fragments of places, people, cities, frozen in time. Trapped echoes of every loop before, and at the center, a copy of Echo-0. A mirror. Still transmitting. We're seeing the source, he said. Not this station, the one inside. We have to sever it, Rai said. Delete the memory core. No, Cael said slowly. It doesn't work like that. He closed his eyes. I remember now. He placed both hands on the interface. The walls dimmed. The temperature dropped. The floor beneath them began to melt into stars. You can't destroy the drift. You can only overwrite it. So write something else, Rai said. He began typing, not with commands, but with memory, names, places, events. His mother's voice, the way the sky looked before the first silence, his father's laughter, the scent of rain, the last broadcast of Earth before it forgot itself. A world that once lived. Each memory pushed back the static. The station trembled. Something screamed through the metal. A wail not of pain, but refusal. The gate didn't want to close. Now Rai shouted, seal it. Cael slammed it. Final sequence. Transmission override. 0. 0. The station shuddered. Then silence. No humming. No breathing walls. Just silence. The lights returned, and the stars were back. They stood in the same corridor. But now it was cold, dead metal, real, human-built, no pulses, no sigils. The link had been severed. They floated there for a long moment, staring into the stillness. Then, the console blinked once. A final message appeared. Drift cycle ended, memory restored. Cael and Rai drifted away from ECHO in silence, the vessel running on backup fuel. Earth rotated below them, unaware that anything had ever happened. But this time Cael remembered. He remembered everything, and he would make sure the world did too. This time, the sky would never go silent again. Asterisk.